What would you do in this position? There's two ways to get out of check. Knight b1 or king d2. One of these moves is absolutely winning. The other one kills your attack. This is very important concept in chess. We're going to get back to it, but let's start from the top because I have a few more tips to give you in this game. Okay, we have the Italian game, very common opening. I like to go over games that have common openings because this is what you're probably going to see when you play a chess game. Again, if he takes, that's totally fine because it strengthens our center and opens up the F file for us. So he takes. I'm okay with that. D6 is a tell that I need to play A3. As I mentioned in other videos, your bishop will get trapped, so I play A3. Now if the knight comes here, my bishop has a home on A2. And now he goes for this pin. But again, since I'm not castled yet, and his king is already castled, I go over this in many of my videos, I actually just release the pin and let him take, and I'll take back with the pawn. Now, why is that? Well, because I actually induce him or entice him to do that right now, which he does, because this is not a weakness for me because I can still castle queenside. It's actually a strength for me because now I have an open G file to attack my opponent with. So my opponent plays B5. So my opponent correctly realizes, because he's a 1900 rated chess player, and he realizes that, okay, I have to castle queenside because that's the positionally sound thing to do in this game. So I'm going to start launching an attack on the queen side because we're going to have a kings at opposite side castling game where you launch the pawns at each other. Now you might be thinking go to bishop a2 here, but in this position, here's a little tip for you guys. It's actually bishop b3. Now, why would I make this move to let the bishop come here and not use it here? Well, if I come back here, his next move is this. I have to take, and then he comes, hits my bishop. Again, I don't want to lose the bishop for knight because this bishop's strong, so now I have to waste another move and come back to b3. But if I come back to b3, to begin with, now after this, I take, he takes, he's not hitting my bishop. I don't have to make that extra useless move. I can just castle. That's a very important tempo, especially when we have the kings on opposite sides of the board from each other, where the game is very tempo-centric. Okay, so now my opponent starts striking. He's trying to open up the C file, maybe just, open up my position. I take over the G file. He brings his queen in. Now I don't panic. So a couple of things here. My knight can always come back to block, but I want a second option to get out of checkmate if there's a check. So I bring my queen off this square. So my king has a flight square, an extra flight square now. Not only that, but I'm sure you can see I'm threatening checkmate. So again, this is not coming from tunnel vision, like I just want to checkmate my opponent. It's part of it, but I'm also looking at flight squares for my king. So I'm thinking of I have a broader idea. My moves come from like a broader range of ideas. And now my opponent blocks the checkmate because he's 1900, so he's not going to get checkmated like that. So I start launching my H-pawn. The H-pawn is extremely useful when your kings are on the opposite side of the board from each other because it's not doing anything. Its job is pretty much to sacrifice itself or open up the H-file and destroy the opponent's king position. My opponent correctly blockades that. So that's a good move because it stops me from opening up the files. So here I played queen G5. Now, queen G5 is another threat. I'm threatening to win the knight outright because he's in a pin. And this is a concept that comes up a lot, but you might have missed it or you probably don't see it as much. A lot of times your opponent will step into the fork and they'll self-destruct on their own. You just have to see it coming. And a lot of times that actually comes out of a check, a forcing move. So here my opponent, should probably just move the king away. And now he steps out of that pin, and now I can't take because he can take my queen, and that would be bad. However, my opponent said, let me throw in an in-between move, then I'll do that. So I guess he expects me to come here, and then he was going to do this. However, just pretty much gave it away. This is not the best defensive move. In fact, the other defensive move, king d2, is the move, and it's absolutely winning on the spot. Why? Because now my opponent just stepped into a fork. I am threatening to win a piece, and now I'm threatening to win the queen. So my opponent had to save the queen, and he took a pawn. And now I just take the knight here, and now I'm cleanly up a piece. Okay, and I'll show you the rest of the game because there's also more instructive things to come here. So now my opponent goes to break open this. Now, you might be thinking take with the bishop here, but we don't want to do that because we don't want our opponent to come in here and then win the knight. So tactics, okay, above strategy, okay? Tactics comes before everything. So even though that looks positionally sound, it would actually just be losing for tactical reasons. So I take with the pawn. He wisely steps his king aside now, and now I just step my queen in here. Now this allows the pawn to go forward again, but I'm also blockading this pawn, so their pawn cannot blockade my pawn. So my opponent attacks the c-file. I bring my knight into the game. Now, if he trades with me, I'm trading down pieces, up a piece. That's what I want anyway. And if he doesn't trade with me, my knight's coming in here. Let's say we have this, and if you can stop checkmate, you're a better player than I can because it's mate in 4. And I don't even know how it's mate in 4 there because, oh, I guess he has a series of checks and can, you know, squeeze out a few more moves. Okay, here he had to take the knight because he didn't see how he can defend that, so it pretty much forces a trade of pieces. And now I take back with the e-pawn. So I don't want to take back with this pawn because my bishop could, you know, be vulnerable here, and my king's like open. So I want to block that c-file. So now my opponent goes for a break. So when you're attacking, you want to open the position where you're attacking, and when you're defending, you want to close the position. So even though I'm attacking, this was an attacking move on his part. So I don't want to really open up this lane of attack because, you know, he can start, you know, breaking this open, opening up the f-file maybe, or something like that. So I simply just play a patient move. I close the position. There's no need to rush. Now my opponent's going for my bishop. He wants to kick my bishop out and take this pawn. So in other words, like if I play a random move, he might want to do something like this, and then this, hit my bishop, hit this. I'm not really sure. Something like that, though. Okay, so I play rook a1, keeping an eye on that pawn. He switches gears. Now, again, he has a threat. We can't get tunnel vision in chess. So if I start going along with my plan, you know, he might just take my bishop right away. In this case, it wouldn't work because we have this, but he's setting that up at some point. Okay, so I kick the queen out first. The queen comes back. I take the pawn, and he puts his other rook on the c-file. Now I'm going to open up that h-file. I go ahead and open it up. Now I can attack from here. I can also attack laterally and vertically here. Okay, so my opponent, so here actually I was in time pressure, but I should have just played rook a7 and he cannot stop checkmate. But I played rook h1, which is an inaccuracy because he can block. But I just attacked the pawn, and when he came back to defend, I throw in this move. This move is a clever move because this rook is defending checkmate, so it's a deflection tactic. He can't take or he'll get mated. And if he doesn't do anything, I'll just take his rook. So here he played the other rook here, and then I just took and put the rook on a1. And this move, so in chess, we want to always be aware before we put our piece on a square that our opponent can take. So the first step is you want your rook to go to a1, but then you have to realize that his queen can take. So that's the first step. The second step is it okay? Is it bad for him if the queen takes? So bad players might go here and just lose their rook without any idea. Mediocre players might say, oh, I can't put my rook there because the queen can take. But more experienced players can say, I'm going to put my rook here because I'm going to attack over here and beat my opponent. And if he takes, which is what he did in this game, he's actually giving up checkmate in one move. So that's how the game ended. Anyway, hopefully you found that video helpful. If you did, check out this video. Get out of here. Go play some chess.